WNST.net. We're live on Rod Carew. Would be doing my radio show on Radio Row. I set aside everything, owners, press conferences, and all that stuff. And Mary Rulon's here as well. I knew Conrad, and I don't want to retell your story. I think our audience knows parts of these stories, but first off, Rod, welcome in. This is a real homecoming for you. The Mall of America, I mean, you used to hit doubles into the Gap over here by the roller coaster back in the day.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
But they still remember as you walk into the Mall of America.
Yeah. I come back here a lot. I work for the Twins, so I'm in Minneapolis a lot. And it's like being home, my second home.
Well, this is like coming back to the old parking lot here where you went to work every day for about 15 years, right?
Yeah, that's true. We didn't draw a lot, but we had a lot of fun.
Well, I saw the killer's seat up on the corner there, so I know things are great. You have led such an unbelievable life. I consider myself a fan of yours because I had a wiffle ball bat back in the 70s, and I wanted,
using that funny stance.
The Panamanian stance. I'm Venezuelan back.
No, that's Nolan Ryan's stance. He's the one that had me hitting like that.
Lean back, get as much time as you have. Well, Luis is my cousin, so you played ball. Luis ran around out here with you as well. And the story, I did not know you served in the military. Let's start with that. That's a part of Rod Carew that I had to Wikipedia.
Well, I was in the Marine Corps for 7.5 years. During my baseball career, I would have to go to meetings on the weekends and also spend 2 weeks during the summer at active duty. So it was something that kept me from going to Vietnam, but still serving the country and doing what I could during that time.
Well, this story has a middle, and I'll bring my wife and leukemia in because you were incredible inspiration to us, even though we didn't know what was happening to you. My wife's had her life saved on the bone marrow registry of leukemia, and here you've had this incredibly magnanimous thing happen to you. And I guess, Mary, this is when to bring you into the conversation. I knew Conrad because he was an interesting-looking fellow, kind of tall and blonde, and stood out from the crowd in a locker room, and wore Todd Heap's old number. So we would see that. Did you know about Rod? Were you a baseball? At what point did Rod Carew come into your life to know that he would be carrying the heart of your boy with?
Well, I didn't know he was going to get my son's heart, but at the time. But I grew up watching Angels baseball, and so Rod Carew was actually one of my favorites. My dad really liked him as well. Like my dad would take me to games, and I grew up. I always liked Rod Carew. I don't know why. Maybe that's one of those God winks. But Conrad and Rod's kids went to the same elementary school, so Conrad actually met Rod when he was about 11 years old, and Conrad had always wanted, he didn't start playing football till his sophomore year of high school. He only played basketball and soccer and different things, but we wouldn't let him play tackle football. But he came home one day and he says, Mommy, I met Rod Carew today. I met Rod. He was about 11.
Where did he meet you? At the stadium?
No, it was at
school.
At school.
School, okay.
His Rod's stepkids went to the same school as my kids, and Rod's son was on my middle son's basketball team, so it was at a basketball game, and Conrad was watching his brother play, and Rod was watching his son play, and he just met him briefly, and he came home, and that's all they talked about, and he says, he's a pro athlete, and I said, yeah, I know, I used to watch him play, and he goes, well, I want to be a pro athlete, I go, I know, Conrad, I know that, and
he grew pretty big and strong.
He
was a big lad.
He was like a dandelion in the grass. Yeah, he was about 6'6", 270 pounds when he passed. So he was in top shape.
Your story about him passing and the time, your grief, and the things that happened to save his life, what's the time frame we're looking at? I mean, the man that saved my wife's life was from Germany. The blood had to be over in 24 hours, out of his body, clean, cleared, flown across the Atlantic Ocean and put into her with couriers. I mean, I always say with her 2 miracles, it would be the most unbelievable documentary ever of the nurses, doctors, pilots, couriers, all of that happened.
Right.
Give me a little, where did Conrad pass?
So Conrad, it was 2 days after Thanksgiving of 2016. It was Saturday. He was going to come and hang with his brothers. He was in, like I said, top shape. And he says, Mom, I need to do a workout before I come over. I've been eating Thanksgiving food, and I need a workout. He was in very good shape. And during his workout, he felt a pop, or what he called a click, in his head, and followed by an intense headache. So he called home, my husband being a doctor, and my husband says, well, you're walking and talking, so it's probably not an aneurysm, but go in and get it checked out anyway. So it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and by the time we got to the hospital 10, 15 minutes later, they had discovered an aneurysm, and it was bad. There was actually one of the worst you could get. So Conrad was with us for 4 days in the hospital. They transferred him to UCLA, and after 4 days in the hospital, his aneurysm burst. So every other treatment was off the table. He had to undergo a 17-hour surgery just to try to save his life. He made it through the surgery, and he lasted until the transplant. They declared him brain dead on December 12th. So it was like 12 days in a coma, and they kept his body alive for Rod to get his final gift, which was December 16th.
Where were you, Rod, at this time?
I was in the hospital, actually.
And what are you thinking at this time? Waiting. Waiting.
Well, I should say I was on my way back from an appointment with my heart doctor in San Diego, and just waiting. You know, we were just waiting to see if I was going to be on the list and when I was going to get a heart.
So how does this happen? You check a little box, right, on your ID. I mean, a donor or not donor. My license says donor.
Well, Conrad, it was. I know exactly what day it is because I found the check he wrote. I actually sent him his driver's license renewal to Baltimore when he was with the Ravens sometime in February or whenever, right before he came home from camp. I said, Conrad, send this in right away. Well, he got home. It was April 1st, and he goes, oh, my gosh, his birthday was April 4th. He says, Mom, I forgot to send this in. I said, Conrad, sit down and do it now. You're going to have an expired license for a couple of days, but get it done. So while he was filling it out, it was just he and I home. I was cooking dinner for him, and he gets to the page that says, do you want to be an organ donor? And he looks up, he goes, Mom, should I be an organ donor? And I said, Conrad, I can't make that decision for you. That's a personal decision. It's got to come from your heart. And he says, Mom, are you? And I said, well, yes, I've always been an organ donor. I figured if I can't use my parts anymore and it can save somebody.
Well, you're also in a medical family as well, an educated family that knows about these things.
Right, but I don't think that had anything to do with it. It was more my parents were as well. And I told him yes, and he said, I'm going to do it. And that was April 1st, and 7 months later, I remember thinking, I hope we never get to that. I hope it never comes to that, but it did.
When did you find out Rod Carew had Conrad's heart?
Pretty much, it was Conrad's funeral. And people were coming up to us at the vigil and at his funeral, and mind you, I was in Conrad's hospital room for 2 weeks. I had no idea what was going on in the world, and people were asking me, do you think it's Rod Carew? Do you think it's Rod Carew? And I go, what are you talking about? I had no idea. Why is Rod Carew coming up at my son's funeral? I don't know what this is about. So it was. I went home Christmas morning, because Conrad's funeral is December 23rd. I finally got up the courage to Google Rod Carew, and I saw Heart of 29, and I went, what the hell? How do they already know that Rod has my... And then I read on, it was Rod's number, but that's how old Conrad was 29. So all of these coincidences, it just started hitting. I almost fainted, and I said, it has to be. This is not... Because it said, your son... They told us your son gave his heart and left kidney to a man in his 70s in L.A. Well, Conrad was in UCLA, and Rod got the news that he got a heart and left kidney from a 29-year-old young man from UCLA, and that's where and it was the same day.
29. What'd you think of that?
Well, you know, I was hoping I would get a 29-year-old heart because I thought, well, if I do get a young heart, maybe I can come back and make a comeback.
Look at you.
And teach these guys how to hit or bunt or
I think
whatever,
you could still hit 290.
I told him he's got to put the pads on. I said he's got to put the pads on.
So you guys spend a lot of time. I mean, I've seen you twice. You've been together. How much of this are you doing? And I want to get all of the information out here, the Go Red and the Red message you've had. Tell everybody what you're doing, because I think that's the most important thing. Because much like losing your daughter to leukemia helped save my wife's life through information, you're going to save more lives here. There's no doubt about that.
I hope so. I'm hoping to keep Conrad's memory, his legacy alive. This is what he did. This was his last gift. And we're trying to make the most of his final gift and keep his legacy alive. He would be, I know, he'd be up there going, Mom, yes, I didn't need those anymore. Good. I'm glad this is going on this way. I'm glad they went to Rod. I'm sure he's got a front row seat to all of this, and I'm sure that he would just be just thrilled. I actually think that when I found this out, I said somehow Conrad found a way for this to go to Rod. I really felt that up in heaven.
You got a lot of miracles in your life, Rod Carew.
Well,
Let me tell you what, it's incredible.
I'm happy. I'm happy that the family and my family are very close, because we know what we have to do. We're trying to save lives, and Conrad's right there with me all the way, and he's pushing me, and I'm so happy that I'm still here to be able to share what God gave us and try and help other people.
American Heart Association, Go Red for Women, nationally sponsored by Macy's and CVS Health. That's where my wife gets her drugs as well. Taking action for women's heart health. You can learn more there. Go Red for Women. You can get the hashtag out on the web. I just want to say this. You lost your daughter to leukemia back in 20 years ago. I almost lost my wife, and I didn't know the full story of your daughter. Your daughter did not have a match, and in the 90s there weren't matches for people of ethnicity. That is changing now, and I have a two-time miracle right here that all of the work you did for 20 years for leukemia contributed to saving my wife's life.
Well, that's a promise that I made to my daughter. I said, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to do my best to help other people out there that need to find a match, and we've been fortunate we've gone from 50% to about 90% now of saving a lot of kids.
Miracles like her over there.
Well, and it's fun when someone comes up and say, thanks to Michelle. I said, well, I didn't lose a daughter. I've gained so many children in my life that we've saved, so I'm happy about that.
You can adopt my wife there. You can make her stepdaughter. It's fine.
She's got a great smile, so yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, when we did a baseball tour after her first battle, I did 30 ballparks in 30 days for the Bone Marrow Registry. There's a statue of your daughter out at the Big A, and then here in Minnesota was the end of my tour. I actually came through the mall and did the Killer and all that, and your statue here. So I knew there weren't a lot of baseball leukemia stories. Yours was one of them, and I sought to meet you, and I didn't know you were struggling 2.5 years ago. So here we are in Minnesota, at Met Stadium, no less.
Home.
And it's not even a statue of you. It's like the real you. Thank you, Mary. New Conrad, my heart to you. My heart to you, and we got a lot of heart around here today.
Thank you.
American Heart Association, Go Red for Women. Conrad Rulon's heart is here. Rod Carew is here. His mom is here. We're all here at the former Met Stadium, now the Mall of America. It's all brought to you by Howard Bank and Royal Farms. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.
Are you really? Yeah.